Could work, could not work, we'll get to that. You have an idea.
Do I feel just as much satisfaction with a little bit more as I did with a little less or that extra thing?
So the idea being that whatever else you're getting beyond that limit is not really adding in any real way. And so it's redundant.
Yes.
And so it's some amount of introspecting where you're asking yourself, okay, how's this going? Is this working? Is this not working? What's it connected to? But that being said, to the point that he made, what's also interesting is that he has a definition already in mind. He's thinking about, okay, happiness is my way of thinking about this, or satisfaction, or something. So we fix something. We ask ourselves, okay, this is the lens that I want to take. Is this making sense of it? So for example, if you're trying to convert this into a spiritual goal, right? You would think about it in terms of what are my spiritual goals? And this is a very personal topic. Everyone has very different levels of spiritual goals and different kinds of goals. Eventually, the purpose, but how we approach it is different for different people. And so that's a good starting point. So you ask yourself, what are my spiritual goals? And this activity that I'm engaging in, is this getting me closer? Is this working? Is this adding in some way to this point? Is this improving it, or is this not improving it? Or is this just where it was? And then you get an idea. You're like, okay, maybe that camera that I really thought means the world to me doesn't mean as much, which happened in my case. I thought I'm born to be a photographer at this point. I had a sudden kind of awakening where I'm like, this is my passion, and that DSLR has just stayed there. It's added absolutely no value to my life. $500 gone down. Great. Yeah, I'm getting distracted. Yep. Oh, I gave a disclaimer, by the way, where I said that if I don't have the answer, I'll crowdsource it. So you should know that. And now you can answer it.
At some point, like, it's suggested. Now I feel okay with this much, if I get a little bit more. But then, see,
My unpopular opinion probably will be that new bars are okay because we changed with time. And so where my goals were yesterday are probably very different from where they are today. So like I said, while the ultimate goal is clear, what I'm doing to get there probably changes with time. And as long as I know I'm making progress, I'm okay. But again, my thinking, I don't think it has to be there. It's a 1 minute answer. Maybe I think harder and probably. All right. So first thing we figure out is that it's first. The second thing, which is also interesting, is that it's kind of tricky. What I mean by this is that there are some activities where we might think that how can more of this be a problem? How can it be? This activity sounds so right. How can you do too much of this? And the answer is there is no such thing. For example, another personality, the actually talks about, by the way, before we get there, refresher. You've done the different forms of yoga, yeah? Karma, bhakti, jnana, it's happened before we started. The Bhakti he actually talks about how, even depending upon these forms of yoga, you might mess things up. So, for example, people who are on the pursuit of jnana yoga, for them it's like, oh, knowledge will lead me to this realization and this deep realization of reality, and then they just go in that direction, which is great. And one may think, oh, pursuit of knowledge, like that sounds so noble. Like, how can anyone get that wrong? Like, what can over accumulation with something as beautiful as just the simple pursuit of knowledge, like, how can it go wrong? Fun fact, he talks about how that can go wrong. Because if you lose track of why you're trying to collect that knowledge, it goes back to the same thing that I was talking about before, purpose. Purpose defines things. So you could think about some activity and say, oh, this just sounds like a lovely activity. And it cannot be, Bhakti yoga is an exception. I'm not getting into that territory. That's like a tricky territory. But apart from that, if you're like thinking about karma yoga, jnana yoga, things like that, you can go wrong. And so that's why exercising constantly asking yourself, like, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Things like that are extremely important. And that was like the first part that I wanted to cover, because that overaccumulation is largely like, it's a lot about reflecting yourself and trying to figure out where you stand. And then you start thinking about, okay, why is this a problem? How could I solve the problem? Is there even a problem? Sense? With me so far? Questions? Something doesn't make sense? I'll take a quick pause, like for a few seconds to think about it. If something's not making sense, let's talk about it. And then
One thing I was thinking about with the definitions of overaccumulation, or another metric to look at it is it fueling what I want to do and where I want to go, or is it getting in the way of where I want to go?
no, makes a lot of sense. And that's, it also ties in very nicely to why the problem. Right. So the point that you brought up makes a lot of sense, because one of the biggest problems with this whole business of collecting more than required is that the distraction. You lose time, you lose energy, you lose so much on decisions that don't even matter. Right? Like you think, oh, if I were to get this, this is going to work, this is going to do blah, blah, blah. And then you reach this point where you've collected more than required. Let's say, for instance, clothing. You have more than you need. It's not really like, oh, I express myself through my clothes. Like there's no such like kind of reasoning or something going on. It's just there because it's there. And now you're in trouble because every morning you wake up and 15 minutes of your time are just lost trying to figure out what's cool, what's worth wearing. Huh?
Only 50.
I'm a simple dresser. I wouldn't know what the problems are. But so, I mean, maybe more, maybe half an hour. I don't know. Takes forever. Some people figured out an extreme solution to this problem. Well, if you're like Steve Jobs, you're like, hey, that's an easy problem. Just get yourself a turtleneck and a pair of jeans and like, a pair of sneakers, and that's it. Just get like 10 of them. No decisions to make. And that's easy. Well, if you ask me how many of those did he have, if he had like 25 of those, is that overaccumulation? I have no answer. I absolutely don't have an answer to that question. I have no idea. I have no insight into Steve Jobs' wardrobe. But let's just assume that he was a simple person, or at least he tried to simplify this particular situation. But the idea is that when you overaccumulate, then there is also the pressure of having to maintain it. There's the pressure of having to make all these decisions. And all this stuff is really distracting. Because if I know that my purpose is something entirely different, and here I am wasting all my money and time and everything, just making all these decisions, why? Why am I wasting all my time? I had a goal. And then at the end of the day, I'm asking myself, okay, how far did we reach on that goal, by the way? No, I mean, choosing the right clothes took an hour away, and then figuring out what to eat for breakfast took another hour away, and then, blah, 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 and then 24 hours are done, or whatever, 16 hours are done. You want to get your 8 hours of sleep, and you're like, huh, the only thing I can give up on is sleep. Which, by the way, Netflix wants you to. If you were to ask Reed Hastings, he very famously remarked that, oh, our real competitor is sleep. So we're coming for that as well. It's very famous. People thought it's a very cool thing to say. I thought it was rather good, but he also successfully came from this. I know that for a fact. Because I binge watch series like crazy. If I start something, I have to end. And so five subscriptions is my overaccumulation. I have my Disney Plus, I have my Hulu, I have my Netflix, I have Apple TV Plus. I recently got myself Peacock as well, because there was wrestling that I used to watch as a kid and I still enjoy. I was like, this is So a lot of things that I'm saying apply to me as well. I need to sit down and ask myself, have a person fun. That's what I said at the beginning. We are all going through that. Make sense so far? Questions, comments, thoughts? But that doesn't make any sense. How can you say that? And to those who came in late, I also said that I don't know body language, so people understand. So I'm assuming that I'm doing a fantastic job. Awesome. Even if you didn't make anything, everybody. All right. What's the other problem? The other problem with this overaccumulation is that not satisfying. At some point, you hit the law of diminishing returns where you're just getting more and more of things and it's not working out. So you hope, you pray that it's going to work. You're like, if only I get this one extra whatever, it's going to make me happy. But it just doesn't work. You keep collecting, you keep hoping it's going to work, and you keep trying, and there is no satisfaction. Because there is a deeper problem. The deeper problem is what we are seeking is an inherently emotional experience. What we want is some form of deep satisfaction, some kind of love, some kind of connection. And that activity is just not doing it. It's not making the cut. You hope, okay, I have this much money in my bank account. That looked lovely this morning. And then, 6 months later, you're like, I can think of 10 people who have the same amount of money. I want even more. And then when I'm better than them, I'll be happy. And then you're happy for another week, and then you meet someone else, and then it just goes on and on and on. There is no end. And the satisfaction that you want, it's still evading. You're still trying to find it. It's not there. The connection is missing. And it's almost like you're looking in the wrong place. And so that is the other big problem with this. You keep overaccumulating, hoping it's going to work, and it just takes all your time away, and it doesn't even give you anything in return. For example, in my case, so I really like trying out different kinds of food, and I like all these flavors and all this fun stuff. And at some point, I think when I was about 21, 22, so I tried a bunch of different things, and then I was like, why can't people come up with a fundamentally new flavor or a fundamentally new dish, fundamentally new drink, something? Like all this feels so familiar. Like I keep trying it, keep eating more and more of it, and it's so boring. Like, can't people do something interesting fundamentally? And I just kept thinking and thinking, and I tried different things. I was like, I'd just come to America. So I was like, oh my God, maybe it's a cuisine problem. Maybe it's just that I'm sick and tired of Indian food. I grew up eating Indian food. I'm like, this is it. Maybe Japanese food is the solution. Maybe something else is the solution. I kept trying a bunch of things. I just kept spending my money as a PhD student that I didn't have a lot, but whatever I had, I blew it off. And then I was like, I'm not very happy at the end of it. And then there was a practical solution. So 2014, 2015, for those who might have lived in America at that time, was a really horrible winter, in Chicago at least. It was a polar vortex, extremely cold temperatures. I was like, I don't want to go home and cook food. And there were these interesting people who served Krishna lunch on campus, like these $6 lunches. They're like from this Hare Krishna temple, all these people, they come in and I'm like, this is a scam. Who on earth is going to serve like amazing lunches for $5? I started eating them. And I was like, there's something about this that's very, very interesting. And it feels very satisfying. And for the life of me, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, this is the most standard Indian menu I've looked at in my life. I know these dishes. I know this paneer butter masala. I know this malai kofta. How on earth can it be that this, of all things on the planet, is satisfying to me? How can it be that I hate gulab jamuns, by the way? My mom, till date, she's like, Anirudh, what is wrong with you? How can you say you like gulab jamuns? 21 years of your life, you got mad at me every day when I made gulab jamuns. And now you're telling me some temple people make amazing gulab jamuns and they're tasty all of a sudden. Like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I don't know. Maybe they know how to cook and you don't. And my mom is like, it's a miracle you have friends. Just get out and go back to America. It's a waste of time having you here. So But anyway, what I was trying to get at though was the fact that I thought about it later and I was like, okay, why is this so satisfying to me? And then I realized it was the process. These people, they were not like thinking along the lines of this has to be super fancy, nothing. It was all hard. It was service. They were trying to share God's love through food with me. And in fact, funnily enough, it's like, okay, so I tried a bunch of things. So I started eating this Krishna lunch and I'm like, okay, now I have to get to the root of what's amazing about this Krishna lunch. So someone told me, they're like, oh, Anirudh, this is high calorie food. Anything, put fat in anything and it's going to taste amazing. Like, okay, fine, let's try this out. Let's put more butter into everything we cook. Let's just put more oil into everything. Let's just make it extra spicy. Didn't work. Tried a bunch of things. I was like, oh, maybe they use cashew nuts in their gravies, and I never did. Let's try that. I tried a bunch of random things that didn't work. And then suddenly I realized these people have this little tiny detail called offering their food to Krishna before they serve. Like, okay, I don't know much about that, but let's try it out because I've tried everything else. I asked them for the recipes. I've tried everything else. What do we do now? Then I said, oh, yeah, this little tiny detail. There's something called offering. Apparently, you're supposed to pray and, it's supposed to work. And I was like, okay, let's find out online how's this whole business of offering food done. And then I read up and then I figured out. Like, okay, fine. With my little, like, a friend had gifted me a bell from Russia, like for random reason. He just brought it. I was like, okay, let's just use this and let's just offer and let's see what this food tastes like. And I was like, this is interesting. It's not amazing. It's not definitely at Krishna lunch level, but it's somewhere there. I was here and Krishna lunch was here. And this business of offering somehow brought it to here. I was like, oh, that is interesting. I want tasty food. I'll offer all my food to Krishna then. I mean, this seems to work. He seems to be kind, even if and the best part, people don't even taste their food when they're trying to offer it to Krishna. I'm like, amazing. So, this is amazing. I don't even have to think too hard. I somehow try to muster some love in my heart and I try to make it as an offering to God. And somehow God makes it tasty. And I don't even have to worry about this. And it's working. And it's all items that I know how to cook. Like, this is a win-win. I have unlocked a huge, deep secret of this is it. We are sticking to offering. But the point that I'm trying to make, we're on it. We all think differently, things work differently for us. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the connection there had nothing to do with the business of me trying out 100,000 different things. That was not the point. What changed it for me was that emotional. I was looking in an entirely wrong place. The answer was somewhere in that. That's the point, right? How we do it, how we feel it, it's different. We all have it. That's good. But the point is, it's not satisfying. And then the final thing why I think this is a problem is that at least for me, whenever I ask myself, why is it that I try to collect so much, I'm trying to get so much? A lot of times it comes back to this. It comes back to the fact that if only I can, do blah, blah, I'll be safe. If only I do these things at work, it's going to be great. Everyone's going to like me. If only I crack 10 jokes when I'm trying to do this IIT talk, people will like me and they'll forget the fact that I didn't say anything. It doesn't work. I mean, they're not fun and they're actually indicative of a deeper problem. And again, it's one of those where I'm trying to kind of cover it up. I'm trying to collect and then when I said we'll come back to comparisons, that was part of it. Like, of course, comparisons can sometimes be nice because it can be aspirational. Oh, I want to be like that. I want to be as good as they are at something. And that's something. But it also has a dark side where it's like all these comparisons are because I don't understand who I truly am. I don't understand what my unique value in this world is. And so I'm just in the game of comparisons. And then I'm intimidating so that I get back. Oh, I have done this job better than 100 other people. Now, whether I have the talent for that, is that what I'm meant to do? Is this what my skill set is meant for? Is this what my goal is? Nothing. Validating. Just the fact that it's validating. And we chase it. And then at some point, full meaning crisis comes in again, and it's like, oh man, supposed to be good at this, but I don't like it. Which probably is why a lot of engineers in India become comedians, because they were very good, They were very good when they were in college at math and physics and everything. And then and engineering and a couple of jobs later, they're like, well, that was fun while it lasted. Like everyone said, you're so smart, and I had a lot of fun looking at everyone who had lower grades than me. And at some point, I was like, this game doesn't go on for too long. Who am I really? Am I really that person who enjoys math and physics? For a lot of people, the answer is no. And then they try to find something else. And so, and hence goes the adage in India, you first study medicine or engineering, and then you figure out what is it that you want to do with your life. Right? So, insecurities are a big deal. A lot of times insecurities come in because we don't know where to seek protection.
This also
Who is really the safety net?
and the requirements are based on need to have Python 3.11 and to keep them.
All of them are going to vanish at some point. We lose our loved ones at some point. As beautiful as it is at some point. So there is no such thing as a permanent net. I could try to create a net by trying to accumulate. Any net that I try to create like that will at some. And so what we need is a net that actually works. Something deeper. And that's where we again go back to the same idea. What am I trying to fit with? Who am I really? What's the purpose? What's my relationship with God? Because eventually Krishna knows it. Krishna knows me inside and out. Krishna is trying very hard to be my good friend. I'm not very fond of him usually, so I'm like, stay away, actually, never better. Krishna is like, no, I mean, eventually you'll figure it out and you'll come back. And then we talk. And we are safe. But if I have to get there, I have to get these distractions out of it. And as long as I'm over-accumulating, that's not happening. Because I'm only trying to somehow solve for a symptom, while the real problem is still there. And that's why this whole business of over-accumulation is so. And that's probably why now I cannot speak to saying I know how he was thinking, but that's probably why Rupa Goswami thought this is such a big problem. Probably one of the many reasons that he might have thought this. So it might make sense to take this seriously as business. And that brings me to the final part, which is you thought I would say again, no. Give me a chance to talk, it's very hard to talk. So, but I'll make sure we stick to time and everything. So, final part would be like very mean and wrong if we didn't get to at least thinking about what a solution would look like. I made all that song and dance about, oh, this is the problem, don't overaccumulate. And I'm like, how do you solve this? How do you at least get to something like a solution? Final part. So one I've already hinted at, which is reflection. Or put in other words, why am I doing this? Once I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and by the way, this is not one of those where it's like, I just sat down for a day and I got the ideas, I got the answers I needed, and now we are all set. If you're that kind of person, amazing, please teach me how to do it. I'm not. For me, it takes a while to figure things out. And what I've also learned, at least in the 31 years that I've spent on the planet so far, is that it takes help. It takes guidance. So this whole question of why am I doing this? It may not have like an immediately obvious answer that works well for you. You might need help. You might need support. People you look up, you work with them, you sit down, you try to go deeper. You say, okay, what are my good things? And how do these connect? And the answers can also be counterintuitive. For example, maybe, you think that your way of contributing and your way of maybe connecting with God at a deeper level is to build a really beautiful temple for God, a really beautiful one, and maybe a really grand one. That is an expensive affair. You need money for that. And so now if you're like, oh, money is evil, stay away from money, it's not going to work. It's your service. It's what you want to do. And maybe you speak with your guides and they're like, no, we see it. This is an honest desire. This makes sense to us. Go for it. So in that person's case, maybe pursuing that path of whatever might get them to that state of financial whatever capability where they can build that beautiful temple that they wanted to build for God. Huh? Pursuit of money is not inherently a wrong thing. In fact, Mohit Prabhu had pointed this out a few weeks ago, I think, when we were talking about making money and all that. So there's nothing inherently wrong about it because we have to maintain. That's like the basic level. And then in some cases, it's probably very closely linked to what you want to do with your life. And you've spoken to enough people who you trust and who know you and who have this connection with God, like the teachers or the scripture, you realize this is really who you are. It's not, it may be counterintuitive, but that shouldn't stop you because that's really what you're meant to do. And that's how you get rid of that insecurity business that you were talking about. This is really 100% unadulterated you. That's okay. Do it. But it takes patience, it takes time, it takes guidance to be nice to yourself. So one way of doing it is to think about this, and then you'll get your own definition of what is right, what isn't, what is too much, what is not too much, things like that. The other is change how you think. By the way, these are not like, I don't think like, okay, this is like a one-size-fits-all solution. What I'm tossing are a few ideas. So whatever makes sense to you, you take that. Whatever doesn't make sense to you, you ask others about it. If it absolutely doesn't make sense, you trash it. If some part of it makes sense, you use it. So when I say change how you consume, I mean two things. One, consume more mindfully. And I'll get to what I mean by that. And the other is, instead of always being the consumer, be creative. And again, I'll explain what both of these are very quickly, at least the way I think about it. Consume more mindfully is basically my call to say, instead of like just grabbing and getting more and more and doing more and more, think more about the experience. Try to see what's the emotional connection. Think about it more in terms of, there are many ways of thinking about this. One could be like, okay, if you're looking at something very beautiful, let's say you have a keen eye and you're really able to enjoy like all these sights, you like travel and all of that. Beautiful, do it. But also try to connect it back. Think about maybe, oh, I mean, this is beautiful. Where is this beauty coming from? Who is creating this beauty? And that, like, kind of sets you off on the path where you're thinking about creator, beauty, and then there's a relationship process with the creator using something that works for you. The good thing about it is that when you really get involved in doing things, number one, you don't have to do a lot of it. Because just that one activity by itself is so absorbing. You're so immersed in that activity that you don't need like 100 experiences of that time. It's one deep, powerful experience instead of 100 not so deep, powerful experiences. That's what I'm trying to go for when I take up more time. And then for the second part, where I say create and share, what I'm trying to say is the act of creating something is extremely hard. So if there are like things that you think are fun to do, like, I don't know, maybe let's not get into examples, I think. Okay. So the act of consuming is really easy, but the act of creating is not very easy. So if there is an area where you feel like, oh, I could just keep doing this all day, like just as a consumer, I just can keep getting more and more of this, try to think about it the other way. For example, if there's music and you're like, oh, I could just sit and listen to this stuff all day, that's lovely, do it. Fill space, excellent. Maybe also consider, what if I were the one creating something like this? It doesn't necessarily have to be something else. Why am I advocating for this? Because once you start creating, you really hit your real thing. Creation is extremely hard. You can't just work hard and somehow do it. You need empowerment. You need your connection to God or some source of strength, some source of spiritual strength. Without that, like most creation, it doesn't work. It's not satisfying. And so now you're kind of channeling this interest you have into something more productive, into something that's really getting you face to face with God, with inspiration. And then if you have to share it, that's a responsibility. That takes it another step. Like I actually love reading, but also a lot of times when I read, it seems very purposeless. But then I knew that I have a responsibility of sharing at least a little bit here. And that changed everything for me, at least as far as this activity is concerned. Suddenly it became a responsibility. Suddenly it became, Krishna, help me figure this out. I am very good at gibberish. How am I going to say something that makes sense? And then that just set me off on that path where I had to like really dig into it, think about, okay, what could be useful? What might make sense in my life context? What might make sense, at least to some extent, in your life context? It changed everything. Like the reading that didn't make sense to me, that was just like, I'll do it. Or maybe it didn't have any direction. But the moment I said, okay, but if I were to take up this responsibility, how might that look like? Change everything. Everything is maybe being so dramatic, but it changed it. Just made it a little better. And so I said, okay, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe you try to at least think in that direction. But it's not just one way where you're just getting, and getting, but also you're thinking about giving. Can I give something? Can I create something? Maybe that's also. I'm not very good at ending things. This is an abrupt ending, but
I'm just going to come over here and be like, I like the creating point because I'm just thinking, if I have a lot of something, let's say a physical item, it could just be that I haven't figured out how to use it in the proper function so that what seemed like too much suddenly becomes the right amount with the right view. So like this an aspect of that creation.
which makes a tremendous sense to me. But it's also again one of those where it's like our experiences and the way we understand shapes. But that's how very productive. What would you say about what I'm good at? Doesn't work out. It goes back. Remember I was talking about Jnana Yoga where you're like, reading is fun. It's just amazing. Everyone should do it now. It's the same with thinking also. Like, oh, so many thoughts. How lovely. Like, such a sharp brain. At some point that also starts to come. And also, like again, at least for me, I don't know, I can't make this claim for everyone. My overthinking, I know for a fact, comes from my thinker. For me, it's me trying to create certainty in a world where there is no certainty. Almost always when I track back, why am I overthinking? There's a process. And so at least for me, I concluded that amazing, you can think all these things, find something more useful to do. You need to practice. I think that's how I did it. Yes.
Yeah, so my experience is, you mentioned this before, it's a lack of purpose or the wrong purpose that leads us to overaccumulating, whatever that is, right? So, for example, we've all grown up, or we have this Western mindset, this capitalistic mindset of, hey, this stuff is not going to make me happy, but it's the way to score. How else am I going to score against another? You know, like, how am I going to do it? I'm crack of it with a bank balance. That's how I'm going to do it. Yeah. Yeah, it's so like on top of it, like the only way I can beat him is like buy a bigger bank.
Exactly. Comparison, right? Like that becomes the wrong purpose. But it's like, yeah.
So if you, so I guess, but seriously speaking, where that mindset comes from is not understanding what our true purpose is in life. So like, people that we all respect from a material perspective, like, Mark Cuban or whomever, right? Elon Musk, but so whoever, they don't have a purpose necessarily. What the right purpose is.
Sorry, one moment.
Yeah.
My hearing is really sensitive, so I can hear the murmurs behind if you can keep it a little properly.
Yeah. So I guess my point is, if you don't have the proper purpose, then it can lead to over accumulation, because you're not quite understanding what I'm supposed to do. So you're like, oh, maybe this is what how I'll, how this is what I'm supposed to do. So especially in the Western culture, that's all we're taught, just that one side of it.
Work hard, get more, get even more, do even more, get even bigger, get even better.
Right. And I think what you're saying is, which is amazing, is if you have that other side of it is, hey, work hard as you would work on this side of the equation, but then whatever you get, you get. Yeah. Right. And so no longer are you comparing yourself or keeping score necessarily. That's not the goal. The goal is, hey, I'm supposed to, provide for my family because I'm a family person and I need to have some money in the bank account in case things go bad because layoffs happen. I was talking to somebody the other day and I'm like, yeah, I remember the 2008 recession. They're like, no, I don't. I'm like, okay. You need to have a bank account to be able to.
You must be 25.
Yeah, and survive that. So I guess the point is the difference between overstimulation for me and not overstimulation is have the right purpose and then not be so tied. Yeah, not to be so tied to the um with the result necessarily. Yeah, you just do the best you can, uh, and hopefully that'll be enough.
That's why you speak a lot more often here than I should. Other questions, thoughts, comments? If not, then let us feel this feel take over or let us should take over.
Does it make sense for everybody here? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Even though you're coming to school here to make money and you don't have any jobs, and you're anxiety prone to get jobs to make money.
Also say yes for now and be, and explain to him how none of it makes sense. Just make sure I'm sitting somewhere else over there and you're somewhere else over here. And
No, the point I want to make is don't be scared of making money. That's not what we're trying to say here at all. You've got to make money because we live in the world very, very hard.
we have needs. Yeah. We have to take care of it. There's nothing inherently wrong about taking care of it. That's your job. It doesn't say accumulation, it says over accumulation. And the keyword is over. It's not about just, oh, I'm trying to support my family. Oh, that's earning so much money. That's a nice excuse, nicely tried, but it's not going to work. Was that point that you were making? Okay. That I think kind of brings us to the end. No? To the end of what I wherever it goes, I leave it to the leadership of the individual society. I'm sorry, I have no insight into this. This is more of an internal discussion. I was wondering whether you're taking a photo of my water bottle. I'm like, well, it's a lovely bottle. Oops. That's how I get the
Take a part of this meeting.
Yeah. That was five.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare
Thank you all for coming out tonight. So now we will move on to the feasting part of this agenda. And we would just like a few volunteers, maybe 3 or 4 persons who can help serve the food. And the rest of us can form the line outside. Any announcements? Oh yeah, having spring break.
Bye-bye.
Okay.